Hello, this is Julia Bell, and welcome to INFS 1010 Computer Applications, and this is the Computer Concepts Review. This PowerPoint will be available and posted in the news items for you to use as you review. First thing we'll look at is what is a computer, and here are the links to the different things that I'm going to be looking at and the topics I'm going to be talking about. Here's the second slide. There's two links here that I'll be looking at. I'm using GCF Learn Freeze materials, which are free and available to use for everyone. Second topic will be basic parts of a computer and some of the items that I'll be discussing. The fourth slide is talking about the inside of the computer, and I'll talk about these pieces and parts. For instance, here is a picture of a hard drive compared to a solid state. Notice the solid state's much smaller. But again, I'll get into all that here in just a little bit. Power supply, and there's a motherboard, and an example of a video card. The next topic will be understanding the operating system, and again, a link to the materials I'm going to be using in my lecture. Then I'm going to be talking about understanding the cloud, and some of the terms for cloud, and talk about storage. And the final topic in this video is going to be Windows Basics and working with the file system. Okay, my first topic, what is a computer? What is a computer? A couple of things I want to look at here is it's an electronic device that manipulates information and data, and it has the ability to store, retrieve, and process data. That's very important to know. It is an electronic device that manipulates information or data, and it has the ability to store, retrieve, and process data. So if I were shortening that, I would say it's an electronic device that manipulates, stores, retrieves, and processes data. And there's a great little video that goes along with this. I won't play that for you now, but you might want to watch that. You'll find that it really helps in understanding these concepts. Let's talk about the difference between hardware and software. First off, hardware, you think of the physical stuff. Touch it, feel it, see it. It's not a mystical creature, it's actually physical things. It's part of your computer that is the physical structure. You're talking about inside or out of the computer. All the physical things are considered hardware. Some examples might be your hard drive in your computer, maybe the keyboard, the mouse, a DVD drive in your computer, maybe even a video card. All those things are considered hardware. This is a picture of a motherboard. It's the main board inside a computer, and it's also considered hardware. Now the next term is called software. Software is a set of instructions that tells computer hardware what to do. So it's telling the pieces and the parts, all the physical stuff, what to do. This is a set of code instructions that we call software. And these instructions tell the computer hardware how to accomplish the different tasks that we want it to do. For example, a web browser is a piece of software that goes out and retrieves information from another server on the internet. A game is a piece of software that allows you to interact with it. A word processor is another piece of software that allows you to take notes and save those notes for use later. Those are examples of software. The presentation I just looked at was written in PowerPoint. That's a piece of software that allows you to create presentations. So we just looked at the difference between hardware, the physical stuff, and software, which is the written code set of instructions that tells that hardware what to do. Let's talk about the different types of computers. There's a lot of different ones here in this picture, from a laptop, there's two of those. This is a smartphone, or we now just call it a cell phone, the latest generation. There is a monitor and a keyboard probably attached to a desktop computer. Here's another laptop. There's a computer with multiple monitors. Laptops, this one has an external webcam on it. This is probably an all-in-one device. There is an iPad. Again, a lot of different devices in use here. Let's talk about the first category, desktop computers. People use these at home or at school or at work, and they're designed to stay in one place. They're in a fixed location. They're usually lower in price, and they're easy to upgrade or expand. But you think of it as in a home, a work, or a school, and it's in a fixed place. It doesn't move around as easily, but it's easier to upgrade. You talk about a laptop. This is a very common type of format. A laptop, originally called this because people could balance it on their lap, and some of them are smaller and larger now. It is battery powered, which means it's portable. I can take it with me. It's very portable. It's not impossible to upgrade these, but it is more difficult. This, for instance, is a newer model Mac. Those are much more difficult for the average consumer to upgrade. Some of the memory is soldered to the motherboard, which that's a process where you melt metal, for lack of a better way of terming it, and fuse it to the board. Those can be gotten loose, but it's not for the faint of heart. So do keep that in mind. It's not impossible to upgrade some of those, but it's very unyielding. So most of us will choose not to do that, not to upgrade it. It's portable, but it's difficult to upgrade. Some of the computers, for instance, this one you could use a mouse or other things with it. You could use an external keyboard, external mouse to it. Type of computer doesn't require outside peripherals because it's got a keyboard, it's got a trackpad, it can do everything there in one. It's similar to an all-in-one. People can use this at their desk, or they can take it with them on the go while they're waiting at the airport or on the doctor's visit or whatever. Very portable. When you talk about tablet computers and some other smaller ones which are on down here, like the smartphones, wearables, game consoles, some of that stuff, those are all really lumped into one category. That category, personal digital assistants, they call those things. When we're talking about a tablet computer, an e-reader, a smartphone, any of those, they consider a personal digital assistant because it's usually designed for one person. It's very small and portable. So that's why they got personal digital assistant, for the use of one person, not like a desktop where multiple people could share it over the course of, a 24-hour period, or like in a library where you have desktop computers. In a lab, someone may use it for 30 minutes, leave, and someone else come in and use it for an hour or more after that. It's meant to be shared. Tablets and smartphones and e-readers are meant to be used by one person. That's why they call it a personal digital assistant. That's the category. When you talk about things like tablets and the smartphones, those do have mobile operating systems. They have far less features than like a laptop or a desktop to make it lighter weight operating system so that the battery lasts longer. So again, not as many features in the operating system as a desktop, but they work quite well. For instance, this is an example, a tablet, and it's really a very special item because it's touch sensitive for your typing and your navigation. You can click on different things. An iPad is an example in this category. Samsung makes one as well. Amazon makes a Fire. So there's a lot of different products that fall in that category. But it's a specialized type portable device that's touch sensitive for typing and navigation. A little bit more portable than a laptop. Next category, we go to much bigger unit. These are called servers. And the reason is, you got it. They serve up information to other computers on a network. For instance, when you use the internet, you are using information stored on a server. For instance, if you go to eBay, ebay.com, and you go out there and you search for an item you're looking for, you have crossed the internet and you are using a server, or in this case, eBay's server farm. A server farm is a large installation of many, many servers, because you aren't the only one at any moment in time that is shopping on eBay. Picture here shows a corridor in a large data center to where there's many, many servers, routers, switches, all those things that make a network do the things that it does. For instance, again, the internet is an example of connected servers that share info. And a server is much bigger than a desktop. So do keep that in mind. Some other examples, smartphones, wearables. I hear you talk about fitness trackers, smartwatches. For instance, Apple is now in their third generation of a smartwatch. Those do more and more every day. And I don't look for it to be too long. They're already in prototype to where your smartwatch can also check your blood glucose level without puncturing your skin. They're looking at sensing the moisture and the temperature of your skin and some other things and the chemicals that come out of your skin rather than having to puncture. So anybody that's looking for that device, Georgia Tech has been experimenting with that for 2 years now. I went to some research there and it was pretty incredible. Again, that was even 2 years ago. Okay, we're talking about PCs and Macs. A PC is a personal computer, therefore the PC, you got it. It's probably the most widely used. Typical ones of these include Microsoft operating system is the most common used of a personal computer. Macs. This is an example of an all-in-one. It does have a separate keyboard and mouse, but the computer and the processing unit is all in one. There's, I think it's DVD or CD drive that comes out on the side. There's all kinds of input panel on the back, but everything is here in one in this particular unit. Thing to know about a Mac is they were the very first to have what's called GUI, Graphic User Interface. They started doing that in about 1984. So they've been at this a long time. But another thing to think about on a Mac is it uses OS X. This is talking about the basic parts of a computer. Again, a great video here to watch, so do keep that in mind. Computer case, the outside. Ports on the back, connectors on the front, and the power buttons on the front of this unit. Monitor. This thing works with your video card. It's located outside of your computer case. It's to display images and text on the screen. That's what you would use a monitor for. It does have some power buttons to on, off, and some other things to adjust that. When you're talking about a keyboard, a mouse, and then some mouse alternatives, these are all forms of input devices. Another thing to remember is these are external. They're outside of this computer box. So outside of this box is considered external, which means it'd be what? In the peripheral. These are outside or peripheral devices. Monitor, keyboard, mouse, trackball, those are peripherals. Printer will be another one. They are outside of the main box. So that's what a peripheral is. They're connected externally. Here you've got a mouse. This is a wired one. Most people now have Bluetooth or wireless mouse. If you have a laptop, you may have one of these, which is a touchpad. It's touch sensitive. You move your finger on the surface and then click left on side or right side based on if you want a left or a right mouse click. But it's touch sensitive, most popular on laptop computers. Even though I do have a graphics pad at home that has a big area like that I can use with a desktop computer. I want to go look at buttons and ports. This is an example of a laptop and some of the things that might connect to it. USB 3, which would be like to plug in a mouse or a USB 3 external hard drive. You could plug up a webcam, a lot of different things. This is HDMI. Most people think of that going to their TV. You could plug this laptop to your TV, or you can plug in a monitor to it as well, or a projector. Power here, headphones, some other things. Here's an Ethernet connector if you're connecting to a wired Ethernet connection or a wired network, maybe like at work. Most of us, I think, have wireless at home. Some kind of a camera card goes here. You could have a micro SD card, or you could have the regular XD cards. These are USB 2 ports. They're not blue, so I know that they're not as fast. There's another type of port that's not shown here in my picture, but that port is the fastest of them all, and that is actually going to be Thunderbolt. Here's another article I've got up. The latest ports that came out, of course, are USB-C. Here are some USBs. These are some older Type 2. It had an A and a B connector on it. Notice the ends are different. There's another one. The 3s have the blue ends inside, so you can tell that. An eSATA cable. Thunderbolt are considered still at this point the fastest of that group. There's some other kinds. Here's some Ethernet cables. So I wanted to show you some of those. But some examples of ports would be, you'd find on a typical laptop, would be the HDMI. The USB is very popular, especially USB 3, the blue ones, and you may still have some USB 2s. This one doesn't have a USB-C, but my new one does. And again, some type of a card reader. Again, very popular ports to have on a laptop. All right, I want to look at this one. This is Computer Basics. And again, all these links will be available out there in my presentation that I'm posting in the news items. So you can feel free to open these all up on your own and read and watch those videos that I think will be very helpful. Inside a computer, the main part, this is called the motherboard. They call it that because everything plugs to it. It's the center of all activity inside the computer. Again, it's its main board. Has all these connectors to everything. Everything in the computer in some way connects to this board. It holds expansion cards. It will hold the processing unit. It'll hold the memory chips and all kinds of connections to different drivers. So that's a very important part. Your CPU or central processor, and there's where that's spelled out for you. Central because that's the brains. That's where the major thoughts take place. That's where it turns tap, tap, tap into some real data, into something that's tangible and usable. And that's located on the motherboard. It's a chip. It may look like this, or it may look a little different based on what model that you have. It's not a very big piece of anything, but it's one of the most expensive parts of your computer, little square. Some of them are as small as 2 by 2, some of them are an inch by inch. It just varies on what processor that you have. And if we're talking about in your laptop or maybe even in your phone has a CPU as well. The speed of this guy is very important. It's measured in what they call megahertz and gigahertz, millions or billions of instructions a second. The faster you want a unit to be, the bigger those numbers are going to be. It'll be a large number of gigahertz. So that's really important. You know, when people are buying new ones, they buy the most memory, which is what we're talking about next, and the best processor that they can afford because they want that machine to last for a while. Know that this is the brains of your computer. It executes commands and it resides on the computer's motherboard. So there you go. It's on the motherboard. This is random access memory, or RAM. It's your system's short-term memory. If the power goes out and you haven't saved a file, when it's originally created, it's in the thought process and it's temporarily in memory, in random access memory, or RAM. When the power goes out and you haven't clicked save, poof, that thought is gone. So if you have a power outage and you haven't clicked save, it's being stored on these chips temporarily. Power goes out, your stuff is gone. So do keep that in mind. RAM is temporary storage, not permanent. And here again, that is all written up. Again, it's short-term memory. When the computers turn off, it disappears. You got it. You need to save whatever you're working on. And then it goes into long-term storage, which is the hard drive. Another thing to keep in mind, if your machine is a little sluggish and you want to make it a little faster, you might consider adding extra RAM to improve its performance. And this really does help. Right now, this is probably one of the most expensive components with all the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining that's going on. People trying to steal from other people doing that. Fast video cards and fast memory and lots of memory are being bought up by folks who are trying to do that. So that's driven the prices really, really high right now. Hard disk. This is where your stuff is stored. This is the main file cabinet, as you would, of your computer. So you put your software, documents, and other files. It's considered long-term storage. Your data is saved here even when you turn it off or you unplug it, it still remembers it. And there's a couple of kinds of these. This one is considered a hard drive. This one is the hard drive. This one is considered a solid state drive. Notice the difference in the size. And you guessed it, as they get smaller, the price goes much higher. Correct, correct. Difference in access speed. This one, if it powered up your computer and was for your files and everything your operating system was, as compared to this one would be ready probably 2 minutes faster than this one. That's a lot of difference. It's significant. It's worth the money if you're going to be doing anything at all. If you're one of those, I'm going to turn the computer on and go get coffee anyway, well, then to you it doesn't matter. If I'm recording video, it matters very much. But again, hard drive, long-term storage, there's a couple of kinds, hard disk or solid state, with solid state being much faster. Power supply, whether we're talking about a laptop or a desktop, there's something in there that provides power. If you're running off battery, the battery still has to power this supply. If you're running off electrical current from the wall, there's a plug-in in the back that plugs straight into the back of this unit. And that's what converts the power to usable for your particular machine. It sends power from the wall outlet through cables to that motherboard we talked about earlier. And then here again is that motherboard. Off on the side here where you cannot see is more cables, and it all feeds off that power supply into that motherboard, because the motherboard requires power as well. Expansion cards, some of those we might think about. Video card. Video card's going to help power the monitor. It connects to it so that you can display text and images. You got to have this inside the machine to connect out to the monitor. That's where those ports come from. On the back of your computer there actually is a video card inside that those ports are attached to. Connects to the monitor so you can display text and images. Network card. Okay, this is pretty cool. It allows your computer to communicate over the network and access the internet. You can have wired, which would require an Ethernet cable. You can have wireless, or what we call Wi-Fi, which uses radio waves out to a wireless router on your network. You've got to have some type of a network card in your machine for you to be able to send email, take an online course, or bid on products on eBay. So you've got to have a network card to connect you to the network and ultimately to the internet. Bluetooth. This is a picture of an external one, but my laptop has Bluetooth built in it, so I don't need a special little adapter or dongle on mine. This is going to allow you to connect wirelessly over short distances. Most people use a wireless keyboard, for instance. My desktop came with a wired one, so I've got this tiny little dongle that I insert in my USB 3 port, and I use a wireless keyboard and mouse via that Bluetooth connection via wireless to it. Examples of that would be wireless keyboards, mice, there's even Bluetooth printers, and I use a wireless Bluetooth headset. It's computer basics and understanding operating systems. The operating system is really the most important piece of software on your computer. Couple of reasons why. It coordinates software's needs of accessing the CPU, the memory, and storage, helping tell what processes should run in what order. And really, without an operating system, you can have the best computer in the world and it just sits there and won't do anything. You have to have an operating system. And again, the job of the operating system is to coordinate software that it needs to access the CPU, the memory, and the storage. Without an operating system, the computer's components would not be able to talk to each other. It'd be worthless. Another point I want to make at this part is when you're talking about a computer, especially a laptop, the operating system may go into sleep mode, S-L-E-E-P. You think of taking a nap, sleep. It uses very little power in sleep mode, Maybe you haven't done anything on it for a while. You've stepped away to go to the powder room or whatever. And you don't have to worry that you'll lose your work, because in sleep mode, your battery drain is very slow. And if the battery level gets too low, the computer saves your work and then turns itself off. So you get down to the 4% or the 2%, and it quickly saves the file and just shuts it down. So that's in sleep mode. Here we talk about operating systems and the types of operating systems. Here's the 3 most popular types. Microsoft Windows, the Mac operating system, and also Linux. If you've seen one that's called a GUI, or graphic user interface, we talked about Mac being the first graphic, but Microsoft has come a long way since version 3.1, where they started having this graphic user interface. And this is an example of the current Windows and the graphic user interface. You can click on different buttons and icons and get it to access different stuff, including icons, buttons, and menus. Older versions like in DOS or the disk operating system, and still some current Linux versions, utilize terminal or command line, which means it's a black screen where you have to type in change directory to here, change directory to there, and you've got to kind of know what the structure is. Here you can just keep happy clicking until you find it. A lot more user-friendly. Example of Windows operating system. Here's an example of Mac operating system. The menus and headings are a little different, and they got the dock down here. Linux. It's considered an open source system. The majority of Linux distributions are free, and that is a big advantage. Windows is not free. It is a $100 add-on when you buy a laptop that you didn't know you were paying, but you are. Windows is not free. Mac operating system is not free. The cost is added in, but you can't buy Mac separately. But again, Linux is open source. The majority of the distributions are free. It is not proprietary like Windows is. Red Hat Linux is an exception. It is not free. Red Hat does charge for their software because they provide a level of support. Most Linux provides no support. You can go out and talk to user communities and get help from fellow users. So that's a big difference. Understanding the cloud. When you think of the cloud, most people think of, well, the internet. It's a set of servers that you don't manage, that someone else owns. It's, quote, out there, not here locally. Simply put, the cloud is like the internet. It's all the things you access remotely over the internet. When something is in the cloud, when we say that's in the cloud, that means it's stored on internet servers instead of your local machine. So again, if something is said to be in the cloud, it means it's stored in internet servers instead of on your local machine. It's stored remotely. I'll repeat that again. When something is stored on servers on the internet, it's considered to be in the cloud. And anything stored in the cloud, you would access it remotely because it's not local, but it's out there or remote somewhere else. File storage, for instance. Let's talk about that. Some examples of cloud storage. Dropbox is a good one. Google Drive is another. OneDrive by Microsoft is one that we've been using in this class. iCloud. Here it says about iCloud Photos, but they've also got iCloud Storage. It's one of the more expensive ones. And as it turns out, iCloud has provided the backend that supports that is Google. Apple finally admitted that. Mozy is another type of service. It's mostly a backup service. Carbonite is a backup service. Backup means you've got everything here locally, but yet I want to send copies of this out to a remote site to where if my original gets damaged anyway, I can go to that remote site and call it back up. It's a second copy offsite for safekeeping. That's what a backup storage is used for. Why would you even want to use cloud storage? What is it? Why would I want to use that? Well, I can think of a couple of things right off the bat. The first one being it's less likely to get lost. Number one, it's not here on my local machine. Number two, it's easy to share a file and then collaborate with others if I've got it stored out there somewhere in the cloud, stored remotely. It's also easier to access it from multiple devices. If I've got things in OneDrive, I may use my iPad or my cell phone to bring up a Word document, or my laptop or my desktop. I've got a lot of different options to look at that document. I can also bring the same document up from cloud storage on my Mac. So a lot of different options there when it's stored in a file storage in the cloud. Again, the advantages are I'm less likely to lose it because it's in one central place. It's easy to share a file and collaborate with others. Other advantages, I'm able to access stored files from any computer with an internet connection. Makes it very, very portable. Let's talk about web apps. What is a web app? These are apps that are not installed on your local machine, but you go out to the internet to use those. All the processing is done out there. For instance, the example they listed is Facebook. I have a little tiny app, if you will, on my cell phone. And I can go out to Facebook and I can search for things on the marketplace that are for sale, or I can connect with old friends, or I can share photos out in Facebook. Facebook is a web app. Another one is Pixel. That one is a photo editing or image editing software. Google Docs, for instance, is another type of web app. I don't actually have Google Docs loaded locally. I go out to their website and use that. And I've got storage out there. I've worked on several national committees, and we use Google Docs a lot. Code.org uses them. Computer Science Teachers of America uses them. I'm working with 2 other cybersecurity consortiums that use it a lot. There's just a lot that do. Others use OneNote, or they use some other type of service. I've used Dropbox. There's a lot of choices out there for storage. But a web app, Facebook, Pixel, and Google Docs are some examples of web apps that actually run on servers somewhere else, not on my local machine. I want to round this out by talking about files. Again, this video is a good video you might want to look at when you get time. Again, the links will be out there. It talks about what a file is, what a folder is. A file is nothing other than an individual file, an individual piece of data. Could be a photo, could be music, could be a video, or a single Word document. A folder is, in this case, the yellow file folders. It is a collection placed together in a single place called a folder. File Explorer. There's also called Windows Explorer, and also on the Mac it's called Finder, F-I-N-D-E-R. But these are all ways up you can view and organize files or folders. And it's built into the operating system. Again, on Windows it's File Explorer or Windows Explorer on earlier versions. On the Mac, it's called the Finder, F-I-N-D-E-R, and it's used, again, to organize and view files and folders, kind of a graphic representation that makes it nicer to look at. Delete. When I actually delete a file, it doesn't really go away. It will go to the recycle bin. I can click on it and drag it to the recycle bin, or if I right-click on it and choose delete, it places it in that trash can on your desktop. It didn't get rid of it permanently. To permanently get rid of it, you've actually got to go to the recycle bin, open it, and empty it. You can empty those one at a time, click on the individual ones and delete, or you can choose to recycle the whole thing. If you accidentally deleted, for instance, this budget file, and you go, why did I just do that? Oh no, I need it. If you have not emptied the recycle bin, you can go back, click on the single file you want, and at the top on the menu there is an option to restore. So you can, it is not a permanent delete by deleting it here and moving it to the recycle bin. However, once you dump the recycle bin or empty it, getting those back is not going to happen. This has been Julia Bell, and this has been our Computer Concepts Review. Have a wonderful day.